We are back and ready to roll. This is episode number 53 of the Shutdown Inning Podcast. I am Steven Risotto alongside Tyler Hall as always, and it was another delay. My apologies, but we are back, Tyler. We're back.
Hey, everybody. Yeah, I finally tracked down Steven Risotto, had him commit to a time for like the fifth time in the last month, and here we are. Episode 53, Steven. We made it.
53, the world. So last time we did this was we were predicting the postseason,
Yeah,
and
that went great.
we were predicting the postseason. We are gonna come back and we are like, we're gonna do a World Series show and everything. And so what are your predictions for the World Series, Tyler?
I mean, I know I predicted the Padres to knock out the Dodgers, which almost happened. I mean, if you go back to when before the season, when the Dodgers signed Ohtani, I basically said they're going to win like five or six World Series over that 10-year span. I'm never going to pick them to win it, but I knew it was coming at some point. So I'm not surprised by the outcome. I think most of the championship series that I predicted I missed on because the Phillies didn't make it. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
a shit show, my friend. But that's why we have a podcast and we're not, making money off of our predictions.
Yeah, maybe we should make money off the predictions. Um, but I feel like if there's a chance for us to make money off the predictions, we'd lose money on our predictions.
Yeah, I mean, if people want, we can help the people. Listen to me and Steven, bet the opposite. One of us will win, and it will probably be you,
Yeah,
the listener.
the listener will probably win.
And you're
Um,
listening to the shutdown inning, so you're already winning.
there you go. That's a positive way to look at it. I like that a lot, actually. So speaking of the World Series, we did see a matchup that I guess universally everybody kind of thought the same thing, like, oh, this is something that Major League Baseball is probably loving, with the both coasts involved, with the Yankees and the Dodgers involved, two huge markets, two of the premier franchises in baseball. Just I guess what did you think about it? I mean, the Dodgers ended up coming back on top. They win their first championship since 2020, their first full season championship since 1988. The Yankees, for the most part, were very quiet. It was not the same vibe for them. But what did you think of the series?
Yeah, I mean, I wish it would have gone a little deeper. Over in five, a lot of the games weren't super competitive. And to be honest, the Dodgers didn't play that well either. The Yankees just played worse. A lot of stats came out when Joe Kelly came out and said we knew we could just show up and as long as we played decent ball, we'd win because of all the stats and analytics they had on how kind of sloppily the Yankees can play, which definitely came to light in the World Series. Um, so I agree. I think Major League Baseball was stoked on the matchup. I think they would have hoped for a much more entertaining product on the field in those games, though.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And I'm a fan of like the underdog, and I think I expressed to you on this podcast that I was a fan of the idea of a team going deep into the postseason that kind of resembled what the Tigers were doing, right? I was like, the Tigers are going to go deep into the postseason. I want to see it. But I was not mad with the matchup of the two big markets. There were stars all over the place. There were guys that are going to eventually be enshrined in Cooperstown all over the place. It was quality talent on the field, and I think that mattered a lot. There's the Shohei Ohtani effect, there's the Aaron Judge effect, and as much as people are sick of hearing these guys' names during the regular season, they are very good for baseball. They are very popular figures in our game. And both of them kind of had like storylines around them in the postseason. Ohtani got hurt. What was it, game two or game three?
Yeah, I believe it was two. Yeah.
Yeah, game two, he ended up getting hurt, and then it later came out that he had a torn partially torn what is it
Labrum or something? Was it
labrum.
labrum?
Yes, that's right, labrum. I almost said rotator cuff, but that would have put him out the year, but he's going to be ready for spring training. And then Judge just kind of went quiet.
Yeah, until game five, he finally hit a home run, but then he had that costly error where they gave up, well, I think it was five unearned runs to the Dodgers in one inning, and that kind of sealed the fate for the Pinstripes there. Yeah, I wasn't very, aside from it being, the Dodgers, as I'm wearing my Giants hat, I didn't mind the two big markets. It's not like hopefully it doesn't become an every year thing, but the World Series hasn't had two markets like that in the same World Series in quite some time. Um, so, I wasn't against it. Like I said, I thought it would be more entertaining than it was as far as competitiveness on the field, but you know, you can't win them all.
Yep, can't win them all. And I do want to ask real quick, what do you think about the idea? Because the Dodgers did a parade at the ballpark. Like the main event thing was at the ballpark, and they had the stadium filled up. Do you think that is a good trend? Obviously, parade is like, a tradition, and we all loved City Hall and Market Street and that tradition. But if you look at an in-stadium parade, you have public transportation as kind of a better option. You have people not really standing around. What do you think about the idea of more teams kind of going to that parade route type of ordeal?
Did they now? I know they ended at the stadium. Did they do a parade like through LA at all and it ended up at Dodger
I
Stadium, or
think
did they
that's what
just
happened. I'm not exactly too sure. I know obviously I saw the video of them in the double decker
Mhm.
buses.
I
Um,
mean, I think it kind of depends on the city, depends
yeah,
on, the walkability of it, where you have a certain location to have like a central gathering. City Hall in San Francisco is in the middle of the city. Public transit to that, anywhere around Civic Center is pretty easy. Um, LA is so spread out,
yeah,
and so I think it makes sense just to have a centralized place. I kind of dig having it at a finishing at least at the stadium because that's where the team played. That's where you saw them, make the run to get to the World Series. So, as long as the fans enjoy themselves and the team gets to celebrate, I don't really think it matters too much. And like I said, I think it just varies city to city, team to team, really. What was your thought on it?
I like it. I like it. But again, I agree. I think it varies. When you said that it like varies from city to city, all I thought about was when the Braves won in 2021, and that video of the bus just like flying through Atlanta.
Yeah.
And I think it was a situation where there was a gap in the parade and they were trying to catch up, but they just like flew through the parade route and everybody's like, "What's going on?"
Yeah.
So no, I thought that was pretty funny, but there's definitely it definitely varies city to city. And look, a championship parade is something that cities crave. They want to have celebrations. They want to have it, in their city. And it's just a really cool thing. But the Dodgers, I think they did a fine thing with, ending it at the stadium. Chavez Ravine is an interesting area. You could park down there. But yeah, I mean, I thought it went fine. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and critique a championship parade. But I remember where I was in 2014 when I went to the Giants one. It was raining. We got down to the Civic Center BART station. We went towards City Hall. It was a cool thing. So I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and it kind of makes it interesting too when you think of like how many people were in Civic Center. Like you couldn't have fit them in the ballpark for like the speeches at the end and
Yeah.
stuff.
It was like a million
Um,
people.
yeah. So, but yeah, we don't want to spend, it was a few months ago now, a month and a half. Or I guess it was what World Series ended 3 weeks ago now.
Is that my fault for not being available?
Hey, you're a busy guy, which you teased it before the last episode ended, but then all the way since then, you got a new gig.
Oh
Uh,
yeah. Okay.
so
Did we not touch on that on the
w-
last episode? We did not.
you
Okay. Well,
teased it and said by the next time we record, we just didn't think it would be like 7 weeks.
okay. Well, 7 weeks is a long time. I didn't realize. Sorry for the listeners. It has been 7 weeks, but yeah, I am now a producer at 95.7 The Game. Kind of working weird hours right now, but it is a really cool gig. Producing radio shows is something that I did not think I'd be doing. Obviously, at some point, want to try and get back into the writing world, but kind of checking out radio right now. And it's a weird time to do that, but I've been working. Sometimes I'll work 5 a.m. to 1, and then I get out, it feels like 5 o'clock. And then some
Yeah.
days I'll work midday from like 2 to 6. And then some days I'm doing Warriors, I'm running our social media pages. Some days I like, for tomorrow, I'll be at 49ers practice. So it's a bunch of
Yeah.
things going on. So
Yeah, so you've been busy. You've had times where we thought we were going to be able to record, and then you have to go watch Clay Thompson at Chase Center or
that was
something.
really
So,
cool. That was a good day.
but yeah, you deserve an award for how much you've been working, man. And speaking of awards, we've got the MLB
Nice.
Awards season
That's a
upon
segue.
us. Yes, that's how you do it. Uh, yesterday they announced the rookies of the year. Paul Skenes taking it home in the National League. Not a huge surprise there. And then Luis Gil of the Yankees, which I think some people had issue with, but and then today's manager of the year, we're recording this on Tuesday the 19th. So later today, the managers will be announced. Tomorrow, Cy Young, Thursday, MVP. I mean, MVP is pretty much locked up already anyway. But what are your thoughts on, Skeens and Gill and anything else award related?
Yeah, my prediction for the rookie of the year was Wyatt Langford, and he ended up getting one second place vote and four third place votes. So not a good look there. But the American League didn't really have a clear winner, I didn't think. Like Luis Gil was kind of he was there. I know Colton Cowser finished second and almost had as many first place votes. That was a really close race actually. And then Austin Wells with the Yankees was, third. And you know who I thought should have gotten more, maybe even should have won it, to be honest with you. I'd have to look at the numbers and it's hard to compare because he's a reliever. But why wasn't Mason Miller a finalist?
That's a
I
good
mean, that's
question.
so surprised. Like, I mean, again,
Yeah.
maybe I didn't look at the numbers, and maybe Mason Miller ended September horribly, and it rocked his ERA up to 4.5 or something. But I feel like we were hearing about Mason Miller all year. He made the All-Star team. I'm looking at it now. He had a sub 2.5 ERA, uh, almost 2.5 WAR on Baseball Reference, which is good for a reliever. And he had 28 saves for a pretty bad team. Where was Mason Miller in the Rookie of the Year voting? I just don't understand that. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But
Yeah, it is kind of surprising, especially when you got a guy, got Class A in the Cy Young finalists for the American League. So it's not like reliever takes you out of these equations. So yeah, I'm kind of surprised that Mason Miller wasn't in the conversation a bit more.
yeah, and I'm not saying that he should have won because it is an uphill battle when you're going against a starting pitcher and a position player like Gale and Cowser. But I mean, I had thought that he would be a finalist for sure. And then, of course, in the National League, like Paul Skenes was definitely the guy. I mean, he just burst onto the scene. He's going to get Cy Young votes as well. Jackson Merrill would have won it in any other year, but Paul Skenes was the guy. He was just so dominant from start to finish. Um, and it just made sense. And there really wasn't anybody else to think about aside from him. And then I know Jackson Chirino finished third, and then Inamaga, like again in a normal year, Shota Inamaga with the Cubs he got only four total points in the voting.
Yeah.
And he was, again, excellent as well. So these are hard, but like some of them are so obvious. And I think in the National League, it was just obvious. So
Yeah.
very
Yeah,
good.
so we'll see. I mean, like I said, today's manager of the year, that's always kind of just like, okay, like, it's cool for the managers to get it, but it's kind of like the players are on the field doing the work. So it's kind of a weird one for me. Even like predicting them every year is kind of strange. Um, Cy Young, I think it seems like it'll be Sale and Scooble.
Yeah.
And then MVPs, I mean, they might as well just have announced them after game 162 for Judge and Otani, I feel like.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. And, you know, there are people that are going to make the case for Lindor and have been making the case for Francisco Lindor, but like, I'm sorry, there's not even a discussion.
Yeah.
Um, like you have to watch the season, you have to watch baseball to understand why it's not even a discussion. So,
Yeah, it's
if you
nothing
want
against
to,
Lindor. It's just like
yeah,
look at what Otani did, and there's just no way you could give that award to anybody else.
there's no way. And I understand there's people that are going to say Lindor played defense, Otani did not. Lindor's going to, a great defender, but have a feel, have a
Yeah,
feel, get your head in the game if you think Lindor is the MVP in the National League. So,
yeah,
and Judge, of course, too. Bobby Witt, incredible year for him. Soto, incredible year. I mean, they're three great players, but Judge again, I think is the winner.
Yep, I agree. Yeah, and just a reminder, when you see Aaron Judge win the MVP, it's based off regular season only. They vote at the end of the regular season. They don't see what happens in the postseason. So yeah, we'll see how those shake out. Um, but you mentioned Juan Soto. He's the as Michael Scott would say, the belle of the ball in the free agency this year. The hot stove is upon us, Stephen. Most of our listeners know you and I are part of Giants Chatter, and we always do a prediction board, for the top 15 or so free agents. We kind of mix up the lineup there a little bit if we need to. So we did mostly the MLB trade rumors top 15. But what are your thoughts entering? We can talk about some of our picks if you want, but what are your thoughts coming into this hot stove season?
Yeah, I mean it's centered around one guy right now, Juan Soto, and I think the expectation is that he signs very soon. But he's really the storyline for me. I mean, it's hard to find any other storylines that come close to Juan Soto. I guess Bregman, I know I had him going back to Houston. I see them working something out. But really he's the story. Maybe you could kind of gear towards what the pitching market's going to look like with Snell and Corbin Burns. But what Soto's going to do to me is the most interesting thing. Um, and how much he's going to get is also the most interesting thing. So he's the
Yeah.
biggest storyline. But I love this time of year. I like when free agents kind of start slowly signing and fits um, with players and teams kind of start dwindling. Like a team with a need fills that need, and then it's like, okay, where can the next player at that position land? So it's kind of like a puzzle for me, and I really enjoy it. And I know in San Francisco, like nobody, for our Giants fans listening, nobody kind of knows what to expect in free agency with the recent report that the Giants might cut payroll. So there's different storylines with each team. But I think for sure it's going to be Soto. That's the one that I'm tracking.
Yeah, for sure. It'll be interesting to see, like, because I think we've talked about it before. It's crazy. He's played 7 seasons already, but he's going to be entering his age 26 season next year.
Insane.
So we might be talking, the longest contract ever, probably largest in like present day value with all the money that Otani deferred. So the current day value of Soto's deal will probably eclipse Otani there. I don't think he might eclipse 700. I'd be surprised, but with the present day calculations and everything, yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see where he ends up. A lot of folks seem to think it's between the New York teams, but he did reportedly meet with the Dodgers or plans to very shortly as well. Kind of interesting. It seems like he's taking LA as his home base. Like all the teams are flying out to LA to see him. So I assume he just lives there in the off season, or that's where Boris is hunkered down. But yeah, it'll be interesting too. The other thing for me is, a lot of not a lot, but like a handful of free agents took a very long time to sign last year. Like probably it was kind of a two-way street with the teams and the players. I wouldn't say it was one side's fault or not, but it'll be interesting to see how long, if that was a sign and teams and players look to lock up deals a little sooner so they can have, full spring trainings, know where they're going to be next year and beyond and take it from there.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm a free agent, and I know money's a big factor in this whole thing, and it always is. If I'm a free agent and players are reporting the spring training in February, in the middle of February, and I'm without a home and I haven't signed yet, I'm stressing out. Like
Yeah.
I'm 1,000%. I want a deal done before Christmas. That to me is like the most comfortable spot for a free agent. And again, I'm not a player. I am not debating with my family millions of dollars coming my way. I'm not debating where I'm going to live for the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. It's very different. It's a big life decision, but at the same time, like I feel like that comfort that you mentioned wasn't had. Um, I don't know. I guess it just doesn't, it doesn't make sense, but I hope the market moves a little quicker and I hope the winter meetings kind of make things go a little faster.
Yeah, the winter meetings are early December typically. I think they're like a couple weeks away. And also, like if you're some of these bigger free agents, you want to sign early so you can help attract other players to come join you in your new location, or even if, where if you resign, wherever you're going to be. gives your team a chance to kind of know where they're sitting and know what they need and, and who you'd be playing with if you decide to sign there as well. So, yeah, we'll see. I think last year I won the prediction board, so trying to run it back, but we'll see. Just since I know most of our listeners are Giants fans, I have the Giants out of the top 15 signing Willie Adames, and Steven has them signing Flaherty and Kim. So
Yes.
you think
Flaherty and
Flaherty's
Kim.
going from LA to the Bay?
I think so, man. I mean, it seems like such a Giants. So this is more of a move that like the Gabe Kapler, Andrew Bailey, Farhan Zaidi Giants would have made because it reminds me a lot of like the Disclafani Manaya. But I seem like it seems like a guy that would fit well in the Giants rotation. Someone who could give quality innings. He's got a really good breaking ball that works that he throws quite a bit. Um, I don't know. I just see the fit there. It was either him or Evaldi. I kind of went back to Evaldi. I know Brooks had Evaldi going to the Giants. That was going to be what I had. Um, but I figured that Flaherty would be a better fit in San Francisco. So I thought about that. I know the Giants have been maybe looking at a starting pitcher, possibly. There's the rumor with Max Fried. There's of course the rumor with maybe Blake Snell possibly coming back, or them trying to work out a deal there. But I do think that it makes sense to have Flaherty in San Francisco. And for Kim, I mean, the writing's been on the wall for a few years now. I think it's been well documented. The Giants have his best friend, Jung-Hoo Lee. The Giants have a need at the position at shortstop, and he's a guy who is just really good defensively, could hit. Bob Melvin knows him. There's just way too many connections for Ha-Seong Kim to land in San Francisco. Now, the only thing that I'm worried about with this is the shoulder. The shoulder injury for an infielder is gruesome for anybody. It's gruesome. Nobody really ever comes back from it like sound. Like for example, Cody Bellinger took a few years to get right after the shoulder injury. So I mean, it's scary. I don't know what his timetable is for opening day. Maybe the Giants go the Adames route. Um, but yeah, no, I think
So
that he's a fit.
if the Giants sign Kim, do you think it's because they missed out on Adames, or do you think that he's their number one target for the middle infield?
It just wouldn't make much sense for him to be the number one target and not Adames. You know what I'm saying? Where
Yeah.
it's like, why is Kim a fit but Adames isn't? Like, obviously the connections I just mentioned, but if you have players at the same position, it just makes sense to get the better one.
So you think they just miss out on Adames because you got him going to the Dodgers.
I do. I think they miss out on him. I think he goes to LA.
Yeah, because I
I think
have
he
those
goes,
flipped because I know I have a feeling that Dodgers are getting one, Giants are getting the other. I'm not sure which one way they'll go. For sake of getting at least one of the picks to hit, I thought about just putting the Giants on both of them, to be honest. But I figured that wouldn't be fun. I don't really think they'll sign both, so I decided just to go for that route instead. But yeah, if you want to see the whole board, the seven of us picked the 15 free agents where they'll land. Follow along with us. Send us, your picks. Let us know where these guys are gonna go.
yeah, I had Alonso in New York too. I had Pete Alonso going to New York, and that was one I thought about too. And why is the Nationals like rumored to get Alonso? Like, where did
I
that come from?
I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't that one never really made sense to me. Like I don't see the Nationals offering him more money than Cone. And
No,
like, why would he want to go play for the Nationals instead of the Mets? I don't get that.
no, it came out of nowhere. It came out of
Yeah.
nowhere completely. But
Yep.
and like the Astros are gonna work something out with Bregman. Like, I mean, I think
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
that's
you and me are the only two guys that have Bregman going to the Astros.
I was
So,
confused by our predictions. I looked at it a few times. I was thrown off by them, by a
yeah,
few of them.
compared to previous years, there's not as much overlap on a lot of guys. Usually there's, three or four guys that like almost all of us pick to go to a certain team. And, there's a few guys that three or four guys overlap, but there's a lot of different logos on this board, Steven.
Yeah, and I looked at the one Eric, our good friend Eric Nathanson, from Torture Cast. By the way, the longest running San Francisco Giants podcast. Chad and Eric, they do a great job. And Eric has Hassan Kim going to the Rockies, when their shortstop Ezekiel Tovar just won a Gold Glove.
Yeah.
So
Maybe he's gonna play second. Him.
maybe he's playing second. That's right. But
Take a load off the shoulder, you know?
that's right. That sounds like a
Um,
pause, but I'm just gonna go with it.
but yeah, and yeah, there's a couple guys that are on a Hall of Fame track this year in free agency, and the Hall of Fame ballot was just released, Steven. And I know it's a topic you and I like to always, dive into every year. Even though I feel like for me personally, it's kind of losing steam for personal, enjoyment, but always fun to look at and just kind of look back at some of these careers. So there's a handful of players returning in order of votes from last year. We got Billy Wagner, Andrew Jones, Carlos Beltran, Alex Rodriguez, Manny Ramirez, Chase Utley, Vizquel, Abreu, Rollins, Pettit, Burley, Francisco Rodriguez, Torrey Hunter, and David Wright. And that's in order of votes they got last year. Wagner only missed by 5 votes. He's entering his last year on the ballot.
Yep.
And then they're joined by a handful of newcomers: Carlos Gonzalez, Curtis Granderson, Felix Hernandez, Adam Jones, Ian Kinsler, Russell Martin, Brian McCann, Dustin Pedroia, Hanley Ramirez, Fernando Rodney, CC Sabathia, Ichiro Suzuki, Troy Tulowitzki, and Ben Zobrist. So a lot of names on this ballot, Stephen. I think we'll take, when we record next, after the ballot is after the results are announced. No, we'll record before the results are announced if I have anything to say about it. But a lot of names to look at. I don't know if I'll have 10 on this ballot or not. I think I'm in the 9-10 range, but I think the newcomers, there's two obvious picks, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I spent a little bit of time looking at this, and I'm still kind of confused by a lot of the names on there and why they might have cases. I'm trying to think who I had last year. First of all, I want to say Ichiro is the newcomer, Ichiro Suzuki, slam dunk Hall of Famer. I mean, the first Japanese position player. I mean, he came over to the United States, 27 years old, I think it was, had a track record in Japan. And when you come from a different country, there's like always the question of like, will your success translate? And this guy's like, it translated right away. He had multiple years of like 200 plus hits. Um, he is a slam dunk, no doubt about it, Hall of Famer. CC Sabathia, slam dunk, no doubt about it, Hall of Famer. Look at CC Sabathia amongst left-handed pitchers in the history of baseball. He's up there in strikeouts. He's up there in wins. He's up there in innings. This guy's a Hall of Famer, no doubt about it. Um,
Do
and
you
then like
think CC? I agree. Sabathia is a Hall of Famer. Do you think he's a slam dunk first ballot? Do you think he'll get in for sure this year, or do you think it might take a year or two for him?
I hope it doesn't take a year or two for him. I mean, I think he's a slam dunk first ballot. I feel like if you're a Hall of Famer, you're a Hall of Famer. And like it just drives me nuts when like people change their mind on like a player. Like A-Rod's been retired for like what, almost a decade. And it's like he's a Hall of Famer one year for someone, but then the next year he's not a Hall of Famer. And then the next year he is. And then you take him off the ballot. Then you take him on. Like make up your mind. And I think that's the issue that people have with the Hall of Fame. But I think he's in. The one thing where it's a little puzzling is that then you have Andy Pettit there. And Andy Pettit, like a lot of people are gonna say, if Sabathia is on the ballot, then you got to put Andy Pettit on the ballot. I get that, but I think Sabathia, I don't know, I think he's a little bit better than Pettit. He edges him out a little bit. Pause. But like there's just it just makes sense. And this is the year for Billy Wagner to get in. Do you want to reveal your full ballot? Should we do that now?
Do you have yours?
No. I was
Then
just gonna go
no.
down
I
the
mean, we can
list and go
talk about
yes.
we can pick and choose maybe a couple names each
Yeah.
and
What about the
talk about
first
them.
timers?
I mean, some interesting ones for me, and I was just looking. So, like, Sabathia pitched one more year than Pettit. They're basically equivalent in WAR, which isn't the end all be all, but yeah, it's definitely an interesting one. Out of the first ballot, first timers, I think the only two that actually deserve to be in are Sabathia and Ichiro. I think Ichiro might be the closest we get for a long time as far as potentially matching Mariano Rivera as a unanimous pick. There will probably be a few people who don't vote for him for whatever reason, even though it's not like you have to add his MLB career alone is a slam dunk, you know,
He had
career.
3,000 hits. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The fringe guys for me are probably just Felix Hernandez, and I don't think he is. Like I said, fringe guy. I could see him getting votes. I think he's definitely sticking on the ballot for a few years. And then Pedroia, I think, just because Boston won an MVP, won a couple World Series in Boston. So I think he's going to hang on the ballot for a while, but I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. And then you got like the what if guys, like if Tulowitzki could have stayed healthy. I was telling, Steve and I were talking a little bit before we hopped on to record, but he aside from Sabathia and Suzuki, Tulo had the highest 7 year peak out of any of the other guys on the ballot, but obviously just couldn't stay healthy. So out of all these guys coming on though, Steven, I think there's only two Hall of Famers that should get in.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you 100%. You will not see a an argument against that. I think Felix is an interesting case. He's fringe. Um, I think he falls a little short. He didn't, I know he came up early. He came up young. He was a teenager when he came up, and he's got a lot of innings under his belt, and that kind of plagued him. Um, once he passed age 30 and his numbers started going down, but he had a peak where he was really good. He had a peak where he was, in the Cy Young voting every year in the American League. And just kind of a cultural figure in Seattle too, and kind of the same way Pedroia was loved in Boston. Now the interesting thing will be some of the sabermetric minded people talking, and this is going to be a really underrated discussion, but I think you might see some articles about it, talking about Russell Martin and Brian McCann. Now you're probably going to think like, that doesn't make any sense at all, but I've seen it. I've seen it because pitch framing is now a thing. These guys played in the pitch framing era. It's going to be brought up. And I don't think they're Hall of Famers at all because I watched both of them and I never thought that I was in the, witnessing. Like this is cool about where we are now because I am now able to like say, okay, I did see these guys play. And when I saw them play, I did not think Martin or McCann were Hall of Famers. Respectfully, good careers, but
Yeah, I think
yeah,
I've said it before when we've talked Hall of Fame, but like part of my non-stats, not looking at a scorecard or a baseball reference page or a baseball card is like when their team came to town, did I say, "Oh, I have to go see blank play?" Like I remember when I was a kid and like Randy Johnson was coming to town, he was starting against the Giants. I was like, I need to see Randy Johnson pitch. I need to see Pedro Martinez pitch. I need to see Tony Gwynn hit. I never was just like, oh my gosh, Russell Martin is coming to town. I need to get to the ballpark. No offense, great career. But never felt like I had to make sure that I could tell my kids and grandkids someday that I saw Russell Martin or Brian McCann play baseball.
yeah, not at all. No, I agree. But we'll definitely fill out our ballots.
What
And
about
then
really quick? What about the returning guys, Steven? Do you think any of them? I think Wagner's got to get. I mean, I think 10th year he'll get a few people who are just like, okay, it's the last one. I think if he ends up not getting in, he'd be the closest ever. Like I said, finished five shy last year. He'd be like the closest ever to 75% who never got in.
yeah, no, he's
Uh,
in. He's
so I think
definitely
he's
in.
in. The other guys would have to make a pretty substantial jump. So I'm not sure if anyone else will get in. Andrew Jones entering his eighth year was at about 62% last year. So he might be able to climb a few percent every year and maybe get in eventually. Beltran, 57% last year, only entering in his third year. So I think he'll get in eventually. But this year, I think we'll do our full ballots next episode, but I think this year would be Ichiro, Sabathia, Billy Wagner, class of
That's a
25.
that's a good way to put it. I like that actually. Yeah, that's a good class too. I mean, we always talk about like, good classes. That's a good class. It's a really good one.
Yeah.
Um, and I think every fan base would be represented there too. You get the
And
Pacific
Sabathia
Northwest,
for the Bay Area.
yeah,
Yeah.
the Pacific Northwest involved. With Ichiro, you got Japanese fans involved with Ichiro. You got the West Coast with Sabathia. You got New York with Sabathia. You got Wagner, just a host of different places, Texas. I mean, that's a pretty good bunch.
Really quick before we go to the ups and downs, did you see the interview? I think he was on a podcast somewhere where Sabathia talked about his early days with Cleveland and Manny Ramirez taking him under his wing. Did you see this?
Kind of. Wait, I think I might have saw it.
So like his first couple years, when he came up with Cleveland and Manny Ramirez was with them as well. And every year in spring training, he kind of take him under his wing. They'd hang out, they'd go to dinner and whatnot. And after finally like the second or third year, Ramirez goes, "Hey, Poppy, how come you never speak Spanish?" He thought CC Sabathia was Hispanic. And he's like, "Dude, I'm from Vallejo, California."
That's classic. That's classic. After the
uh,
30th, that reminds me of when David Ortiz, and this is a Pedroia related. Have you seen the David Ortiz Pedroia one?
no.
Where
Oh yeah, he didn't know Dustin Pedroia's name,
he didn't know his
allegedly.
name was Dustin.
Yeah.
And then Dustin Pedroia was like, dude, I hit in front of you. You hear it. It says now batting Dustin Pedroia.
Yeah.
And he's like, I didn't
Uh,
know.
yeah. He's like, "What'd they call you?"
What did they call you? That's a classic one.
Oh man.
Character
But yeah, so we'll see. Next episode, yeah, we'll release our official shutdown inning ballots. But
official
now that the ballot's out, we had to at least touch on it here for sure.
touch.
Uh
Should we go to Downs?
yeah, let's do the ups and downs. So we'll lead it off with the ups so we can end on something positive.
Yes. Lead it off with the Downs, you mean?
Yeah,
Yes. Okay.
sorry. Go for it,
Number one
Steven.
down because it's positive. The Rays Stadium, no. Yeah, number one down. The Rays Stadium is completely destroyed, or at least mostly destroyed, from one of the hurricanes that hit um, the southeast down there in St. Petersburg. A really unfortunate situation. I can't remember if it was Helena that did this or was that somewhere else, but uh, one of the hurricanes that happened about a month ago just kind of just tore the roof off the place, and it just wiped out a bunch of. I mean, there. If you look at the pictures, there's just pictures released of the inside, the locker rooms. There's water damage completely everywhere. It just looks like somebody ransacked the place, which is basically what happened. And it's a tough situation because the Rays are probably never going to play there again. That's the assumption. They're going to be playing in a minor league ballpark in 2025. I believe Steinbrenner Field in Tampa, where the Yankees
Yep.
have their spring training home. Again, not ideal. And Tyler, you brought this to my attention, but this also means, or I don't know if it's directly related, but their new home and their new ballpark plans also might be in jeopardy. Is that like related or is that like a separate issue?
I think it's just slightly separate. It might be related now that people are like, "What? Maybe we need to spend our money elsewhere in the city," because I know they were going to get a lot of tax dollars for it. But the measure or whatnot that was supposed to be on the ballot to get money for the stadium was pushed back, so it hasn't even appeared on a ballot yet. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens with the Rays. Their current home, Tropicana Field, in disarray for at least the next 2 or 3 years, it sounds like, if they even decide to try to renovate it, or get it playable, I should say, which, we talked about it a little bit. Terrible timing, unfortunately, but like in March, I forget if it's the county or the city had like decreased their coverage, their insurance coverage on Tropicana to save some money on their monthly premium. They dropped the coverage from 100 million to 25, and I think there's about 55 or 60 million in damages. And now it's like, okay, or now the new stadium, which if they started now would be open in 28, is in jeopardy. So it's kind of strange to have basically two teams playing in minor league stadiums, not really sure where they're going to be playing in even like 2 or 3 years. But yeah, it looks like the Rays are now part of that conversation with the Athletics. So
Yes. And just the Athletics, by the way. That could have been another
yeah,
down.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
we've known that one was coming for a while, though they'd announced a while back. But
yeah.
uh,
ATH, baby.
yeah,
ATH. Yeah, just an unfortunate situation there. And, two teams playing in minor league ballparks, like you mentioned, is not a good thing at all. So hopefully the Rays get that settled. Number two down, this one is from the Fall Classic. There's a play down the right field line, a ball that was hit, and a fan, and usually we talk
Two
about fans,
fans.
two fans. Usually we talk about fans taking balls from, players trying to make the play, they interfere. But this might have been the most blatant, like, there's the whole thing about how Bartman took the ball from Moises Alou or whatever, but in reality, it was just kind of a deflect or, hit off the hand or whatnot. This was literally
Yeah.
quoting, what's the Parks and Rec guy, Rob Lowe's character?
Oh gosh, I just blanked on his character name, but yes, literally.
Chris Trable or Chris, I can't remember, but quite literally, this was an example of a
Chris
fan,
Traeger. Yes.
Chris Traeger, literally taking a ball out of Mookie Betts' glove. Like
Yeah.
Mookie Betts made the catch.
Like
And
one guy
literally,
grabbed his wrist, the other guy like pried his glove open. Like,
I've never seen a fan try and take a ball out of someone's glove like that before. Again, like usually it's like a deflection or someone gets in the way, an arm, kind of
yeah.
makes.
Yeah. And afterwards, the fans were like, hey, I guess they sit down the right field line a lot at Yankee Stadium. They're like, hey, that's our area. They know that if they come into it, we're going to try to get the ball. It's like, well, yeah, you got to try to catch the ball, not rip it out of the player's glove. I honestly was just happy that Mookie Betts didn't get hurt because they kind of, he had to kind of jump up a little bit and they were like holding his wrist up, trying to open up his glove. That would have been a terrible, terrible, look if worse than it is already if Betts had gotten hurt. Luckily, he wasn't. Uh, one of the shocking things to me was like the Yankees weren't going to ban them from attending the next games in the series. Like Major League Baseball had to step in and be like, those people are not, they cannot come into the stadium again.
Yeah, no, and it made Jeffrey Mayer look like an angel.
Yeah.
Man,
Yeah.
what an awful, awful scene. But I mean, in a way it was funny, but awful scene. Um,
Yeah.
this is kind of a my third down is kind of a personal thing. I, like everybody, and probably like you too, Tyler, collected baseball cards when I was a kid and would get the complete set every year. And I actually have down here I purchased from Target the complete set because I'm trying to get back into it. And I don't know, my screen is blur, but um
It looks like a very nice set, Stephen.
thank you. Yeah, it's a great set and it's a great, yeah. Um and I am not getting into it for the autographs or for the relics. I'm getting into it to just like when I get older, I want to have like an Otani card and I want to have, even if it's not worth anything because it's just a regular card, but the price of these cards have skyrocketed. And not just the complete set. The complete set's kind of always been around $50 or so. And I think it was like 59 or something, which I was fine with. But there are hobby boxes that when I was collecting 10 years ago, I would go and get for $65, a hobby box of Top Series 1. And now if you walk into Lefty Sports Cards in Burlingame and you try and find a hobby box, it is literally $150, which is insane. And it's because there's a thought of getting one specific card that is worth more than the entire box combined. And I think it's taken the joy out of collecting cards. And I have friends that do it. One of my best friends collects cards and sells them. Um, but just the hobby of collecting baseball cards and sports cards in general has become so expensive. And it's kind of sad and it's taking people out of collecting them. Because boxes that I saw for $20 at Target, 5, 8 years ago are now going for 50. And it's the same boxes, the same brand, the same amount of packs, but it's because we've kind of monopolized the industry a little bit.
Yeah. I haven't purchased baseball cards in a number of years, but I do know it is getting expensive. Like you said, a lot of it is that chase for a card that can set you up for life almost. So like that box you bought, it's just all regular standard cards, but it's the full set. Like there's
Yep.
no special chance of a special one in there. Like they're all out of the pack and they're just all in order of the set.
Nope, this is just a complete set, nothing crazy in it. and I haven't even opened it yet, as the wrapper's still on. And I got it like a week ago, but I've just been sidetracked. But yeah, nothing crazy, and I want to do it every year where I get the complete set, and I just have players from that specific year. There's 700 cards in it, and I feel like, you know what, if I do that every year, and I'll eventually collect someone's entire career, which is cool. Cool to think
Yeah.
about.
Leave them sealed.
Um,
It'll be worth more.
yeah, maybe I should keep it sealed. Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it sucks, especially for, I collected when I was a kid, and just to know that is like, they're gonna have to mow a lot of lawns to buy a
Yeah.
pack of cards right
That's how I
now.
knew all the players. Like that's how I knew all the random middle relievers, and that's how I knew what players or what teams players were on, and that's how I knew the super utility guy. The I don't know. It's just kind of sucks to see.
Yeah. Well,
On that note,
hopefully it gets more affordable again, because the price of cards are up, and so now we're gonna go to the ups. Um, First, right before we hopped on, Steven saw some news. And so, again, for our Giants fan listeners, we're giving a bonus up. Chris Haft is releasing I guess, is it a biography,
yep.
on Willie McCovey, coming out February 3rd. So we've had a lot of Mays books. We've talked about him a lot. Now we're going to have a McCovey book, which I'll definitely be checking out, and I'm sure you will too, Steven. You'll probably buy like 3 copies of it or something, but that'll be really cool.
Yes, add it to my
Um,
collection for sure. And it's called A Giant Among Giants: The Baseball Life of Willie McCovey, and it is 240 pages, supposed to be released on February 1st, not 3rd, 1st. So,
okay, February 1st. So yeah, put that on your calendar, Giants fans, and check it out. Chris Haft's been covering the Giants for a very long time, so I'm sure he's got some good tidbits and interviews in there. Um, but start leaving the bonus up to the side. Up number one, I'll go with Dave Sims replacing John Sterling as the Yankees play-by-play. Sterling came back for some of the playoffs, I believe. Sims has been an announcer for quite some time. I think he was up in Seattle previously, and now he's going to be the voice of the Yankees. So we'll see if I doubt he'll do the Yankees win, Yankees win, the Yankees win, but we'll see what he comes up with. But I know you were excited about this one, Steven.
yeah, I love Dave Sims. He's actually somebody that is very accessible for media. So we could get him on the podcast, I'm sure, at some point, hopefully. I don't know why I haven't tried to get him on Rizzocast all those years, but we got to get him on here. He does a lot of different podcasts, but he's been great. He's a New York guy, worked for WFAN back in the Mike and the Mad Dog days, I think was a host during that time, and went into broadcasting, got the job in Seattle, and he's been kind of a staple there ever since. So, um, really cool to see Dave Sims get that job in New York. And, you know, hopefully John Sterling stays out. And I mean that in the nicest way. I like John Sterling, but when you retire, you retire. So,
Yeah, we'll see about that. But no, I think hiring a guy like Sims is kind of like,
we'll see about that.
yeah, I doubt they'll have Sterling back too much. Um, Next up number two, I've got Chris Sale winning Comeback Player of the Year, as we talked about a little bit ago. Probably going to win a Cy Young, which surprisingly would be his first one, despite having a pitching triple crown in his career, um, I believe. And then, oh yeah, he won it this year. Um, and he was a guy who, didn't even pitch in 2020. Had a couple years where, he's barely pitched at all. Braves traded for him as kind of a reclamation project, and just straight dominated this year. Had a great year for the Braves. Kind of gets him back into the conversation. Another tie back to potentially having a bust in Cooperstown at some point. So just wanted to give him an up for coming back, comeback player of the year, and having one hell of a season.
Yeah, I mean that conversation could happen. Chris Sale in Cooperstown, if if he continues this kind of late career resurgence and has a few more years like this. Um, that move I think was looked looked at the time as like really good, and I think the Braves definitely justified it. There's a stat where it's like the Braves are also interested in Evaldi, and there's a history of the Braves doing really well with older starting pitchers, which is really interesting. It was like a stat that I saw a few days ago where it was like Charlie Morton's been good with them. Um, Chris Sale this year's been good with them. They just seemingly get a bunch of older starting pitchers every few years and just find success with them. So,
Yeah.
um, kind of interesting that has happened with Sale. But yeah, really dominant this year. And unfortunately, I think he had the issue in the postseason where he couldn't pitch with the blister in the wild card series.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, Chris Sale, congrats to him on
But
comeback player of the year.
yeah, I mean, definitely comeback is the right term. Between 2020, 21, and 22, he pitched about 48 innings total in those 3 years. Um, Pitched 100 last year, but he just shoved this year. So big ups to him. And then another little couple, man, my ups are just tied in just like my segues today, Steven. We talked Paul Skenes winning Rookie of the Year. We talked about the cost of cards going up. And part of the reason the cost of cards are going up is those one of one cards that can, change your life. And my up is going to the Pittsburgh Pirates, who so every player now when they make their MLB debut, they get a little patch on the sleeve of their jersey that says debut on it. And so there's I think it's a Topps card. Paul Skenes it has the debut patch from his MLB debut on the card. He autographed it. And instead of someone offering, you get into these debates, oh, what's it worth? What will the team give me for this ball or for that? Pirates are getting ahead of this thing, Steven, and they made an amazing offer just saying, here's what you'll get. Two Pirates season tickets behind home plate for the next 30 seasons, a softball game for 30 at PNC Park with coaching from Pirates alum, and then spring training experiences like no other, private tour of their park, meet and greet with Paul Skenes, two Paul Skenes autographed jerseys, take batting practice and warm up with the team, and basically any other unique, it says other unique experiences, basically like you name it, will make it happen. And then on top of that, Paul Skeens' girlfriend, Livy Dunn, has said if you give it to the Pirates, you get all of that and you get to watch a game with Livy Dunn in her suite at PNC Park.
Well, just give me that.
I've seen a lot of guys say that's all you okay, the Pirates can keep their season tickets for 30 years. I'll just hang out with Livy Dunn for a game and call it even.
Yes.
Um
No, this
it's
is
really cool
awesome.
to see a team just get ahead of it, be like, hey, like you can have all of this if you give us a little piece of cardboard with a patch and an autograph on it.
This is awesome, and I'm glad that we could kind of combine the two baseball card sagas here. The one of me saying it's expensive, and the one of me saying, "Oh, this is cool." Um, but it is cool. It's very cool, and playing on the field and warming up with them, like all that's is so cool. And I I I want to do Giants fantasy camp one year when I am financially stable enough to do that, and don't care that 3 grand is the price of it. But yeah, it's gonna be down the road. But I think it's really cool, and I think more teams should do this. Um, so do I have this right? The Pirates want the card back. Is that what it is? It's gonna just be an exchange.
Yeah, they want it to be there. I think they want to put it on display somewhere at PNC Park for all of Pirates fans to be able to see and enjoy.
Because I was gonna say if you get that and you're able to sell it, like that's crazy.
Yeah, no, the Pirates want the card. It's not like you get it, you get the card and you get all this stuff. You're giving the card over to the Pirates.
Yeah.
Um,
They're like you could get all this, but you
I
can't
guess
keep
like the
that card.
caveat is like I wonder how Topps distributes this card. Like, do they put it in the general area of that team, or do they just put it in a random pack and then shuffle them all up and then some? Because like if
I think
I
it's at a
got
random target somewhere.
yeah, if I get that card, like yeah, having Pirates season tickets for 30 years would be really cool. But I live 3,000 miles away.
I think you could still do it.
So it's like, do you, I mean, yeah, will the
Oh,
Pirates
well,
give you
season
these
tickets, yeah.
tickets and you're able to sell them? Or is it you have to be the one in the seats? There's got to be something there, or is it whoever gets it can sell it, and if a pirate fan buys it and gives it to the pirates, they get all that stuff. But just the premise though of like a team being like, hey, like we'll give you all these cool experiences. I mean, even if you're just like season tickets aside, if you can't use the season tickets, like just all those experiences alone are priceless. So you're just like stacking experiences on experiences for a card that, you know, is one of a kind.
Yeah, that would be
But it's
cool if
really
like
cool that the
if they
team's
make a
getting ahead of it.
deal. That would be cool if they make a deal with like somebody who gets the card, but like they're not a Pirates fan. And then let's say you get the card, and then they call the Giants. They go, "Hey, can you match our offer?" And the
Yeah.
Giants are like, "We have nothing to do with Paul Skenes. What do you want us for?"
Yeah, it
So
becomes like an underground negotiation for prized baseball card memorabilia
yeah,
between teams to help each other out.
it's like if you get it back to us, we will have enough to pay our minor leaguers.
Right. But yeah, so that's up number three. I just thought it was really cool, and it'll be interesting to see when this card pops up, what ends up happening, if it ends up in Pittsburgh or not.
Yeah. Well, I think we shut it down again
We did. We shut it down for the first time in a minute.
in
All
a
right,
minute.
Steven, when is the next episode? Let's go over under. When's the next recording?
What's the
Think
over under?
uh we'll call it 2.5 weeks.
Under. I'm
Okay.
locking in. I'm locking in.
All right.
Locking in
So
on RizzoCast too.
next episode will be recorded before December 6th.
Yes. Under.
Okay. All right.
Under.
Folks, you have it. Spencer, write it down. And yeah, we'll talk to you guys again soon. We'll
Yeah.
release our ballots that show. Hopefully we'll have some free agent signings to talk about. And we'll just work our way through this offseason until we have baseball in our lives again.
Spencer saw the episode pop up on his feed and he went, "No way. They're back. They're
They're
so back.
back.
They're so back." Spencer, I need you to respond to us. Or I need you to tweet, "They're so back," and then tag us. No, you don't have to
Right.
do that. Yeah, thank you everybody for listening. Spencer, you included. You can follow us on Twitter at shutdown_inning. Go subscribe to us, Spotify, YouTube, all that fun stuff. And we will see you next time.
That's what's up.
Bye.